Hello folks, I am Faisal Khatri. Welcome to this video tutorial on generating Allure report with GitHub Actions. In this video, I'll teach you about what are GitHub Actions, what is an Allure report, how to configure and generate Allure report locally with Maven, how to configure and generate Allure report with GitHub Actions. Before we begin, if you still have not subscribed to my channel, please hit the subscribe button and click on bell icon to receive regular updates. What are GitHub Actions? GitHub Actions allows us to automate the continuous integration workflows in simple steps. It can be used to build, test, and deploy the code directly from our GitHub repository using simple configurable steps. It is basically a YAML file that is attached to the GitHub repository that contains different jobs, steps to run the CICD integration part, like building the project, running the unit test, running the integration test, publishing the reports, publishing the artifacts, deploying or publishing the website or building the website, whatever you want to. It GitHub Actions is a very handy tool in the case of CI/CD execution and running the things within the pipeline itself. What is an Allure report? Allure report is a popularly used test automation report. It provides details such as step-by-step execution, screenshots, logs, and trend analysis. It provides details like the number of tests executed with the test status pass, failed, and also the time taken to run the test. It provides a trend analysis of uh, the test execution, like how much tests were run for in how much time, and what is the analysis, like it took more than the previous run or less than the previous run. Also, it provides the different minor details such as the environment in which the test was run, the test steps, the historic and the graphical view presentation of the test execution, which gives an upper hand to the stakeholders to make an informed decision. The Allure report helps teams quickly identify failures, track test stability over time, and improve overall test quality. Now let's move to understand how to generate Allure report locally with Maven. So I have a Maven project available, which is an API automation test project. I have used rest assured to write some API automation tests, and I have integrated Allure report with this project. So as a part of setup and configuration, we need to add certain dependencies such as Allure TestNG, Allure rest assured, aspect J Weaver, this one. And from the plugins point of view, we will be adding the Allure Maven plugin. This plugin helps for automating the generation of Allure report from the test results. And it also helps in the configuration for the report directory. You can see there are the different configurations mentioned here, like the report directory, report version, Allure download URL. You might have observed one thing here, like it does not show any versions in this dependency as well as in the plugin, because I have a habit of updating the versions in the properties block as a part of best practice. So you can see in the properties block there are different tags here for the dependencies. Allure TestNG, the latest version is 2.32.0. Allure Maven plugin 2.17.0. Allure Rest Assured, that is 2.32.0. So, and Aspect J Weaver as well, like 1.9.25.1. So I have updated all the dependency as well as the plugin versions in the properties block. The next configuration we need to do is for the Maven Surefire plugin. We need to update this arg line here, -java agent. This whole line needs to be updated here. This line actually instructs Maven Surefire to launch test JVM with aspect J Weaver agent that enables aspect J to be applied dynamically during test execution. So in case if you do not add this line, the @ step annotation that is provided by Allure report may be ignored and the steps may not be appearing in the Allure report. Likewise, the attachments may also not be captured correctly, and Allure report might not show any step or attachments in the report. So this particular arg line is an important part from the Allure report generation, uh, the step as well as the attachments part. So this was the first part with regards to setup and configuration. Let's move to the next one, that is the resources folder. SRC test resources folder, we need to add one file called Allure.properties. And in this property file, we will add the path for Allure.results.directory. Now, once the Allure report, once the test execution happens, the Allure generates some test results, and we need to provide the directory where the test results need to be generated. If you do not provide any specific path to the Allure results, it will be generated in your main project folder only, which is not a best practice, because if it gets generated on the root folder, may the chances are, and though that folder is not added to your git ignore, whole of that Allure results folder may be kind of a, with all the junk files, will be added to the main repository, which is not recommended. So that is why we add this Allure.properties file and update the results directory specified location where we know exactly where the Allure results will be generated. So in this case, I'll be generating this Allure results in target/Allure results, which is a target folder here, and it is already in the git ignore file. So when my Allure results get generated, it will be generated in the target directory, which is already ignored. So all the test results will not be imported to the GitHub if I push or commit any code from here. And the Allure.properties file is used for static global configuration of the test run and the Allure report generation process. As per the configuration that is provided in this file, the Allure results will be generated at the specified location. So now, as I said, that the results will be generated in the target/Allure results folder. So these are the only two steps that we need for setup and configuration. Let's move to the code. We need to update the test now. This is an API test. Like I said, I have added some API automation test with the Allure annotations so that we get the correct output in the report. And this API automation test uses REST assured framework that performs two steps. Like you can see here, the step one, it's creating the order payload. Step two is sending the post order request and verify the response. So this repository actually uses the RESTful e-commerce demo application. You can check out that application on my GitHub. It is available here. If you go to my profile on GitHub and search RESTful e-commerce, you'll find it here. So this is a demo application that I have built, and it is free to use e-commerce web APIs for practicing API testing. You can try your hands. The documentation is provided here. So the installation steps are provided here, as well as there are two different approaches through which you can start the application. One is using the Docker, or maybe you can use Node.js as well. You need to clone the repository and then provide and then run the command npm install npm start. It will start the application using Node.js. But there is another approach, easier approach, using Docker as well. So mostly I prefer using Docker, and in this test execution also, I will use Docker to start the application and then run the test. So now coming back to the test, there are two steps here. So I'll come to this test for method later. Let's first understand this create order payload step. This step creates an order payload and returns a list of orders. So you can see it creates a new array list and then adds a new order object and then returns the list of orders. The list of orders, because if you just check the wiki page here for the create order, it expects the orders to be sent as an array. That is the reason why we are using the array list here. So the order object will be supplied as a part of array. right? So this is the first step. The second step consumes the list of orders that is provided by the first step and then hits the post add order API and checks that the orders were created successfully in the systems and the status code is verified like 201. 201 refers like the orders were created successfully in the system. Now you can note one important thing here. There is a dot filter new Allure rest assured. This method comes from the Allure rest assured dependency, and it ensures that the request and the response bodies are attached to the step in the report. So if you remove this thing, you won't see the request and the response bodies attached to the steps in the Allure report. So it's basically an important part that you need to note here. So we talked about the setup and configuration. We updated the test. Now the next thing is that execution part. So for executing the test, I have created this TestNG XML file and named it as TestNG hyphen RESTful hyphen ecommerce.xml. It will just pick up this, go to this class add order test, and then include this method test add order, which is just what we discussed just now. Add order test. This is the class name, and this is the method name test add order. And then it will execute the order. If you have different other test also, you can update in the same class. Maybe you can update a new include and then update that particular test name here. Otherwise, you can altogether create a new test to maybe fetch order, update order, delete order, and so on. But make sure you add the different steps, attachments, whatever you want in that respective test for the Allure report generation part as well. There is one more catch here. Like I will not be executing this RESTful ecommerce.xml directly. I will be executing this testng.xml since I will be running the test using Maven. So if you just check this pom.xml in the Maven Surefire plugin, I have given the configuration part for the suite XML files and provided it a placeholder called $.suite.xml. Now, if you just check it in the properties block, the suite -xml refers to testng.xml. So this particular testng.xml will be executed. As I have multiple testng XML files, I have created one single testng XML file that refers to the different suite XML files. So ideally, what will happen? This testng XML file will get executed. Internally, it will read and hit the RESTful Booker XML file first, and then hit all the tests in suite file, this TestNG RESTful e-commerce XML file. So basically, suite by suite, our test will be executed. First, this suite file will be executed, and then this suite file will be executed. There is no process of executing these suite files parallel because TestNG does not provide that. Let me run the test. So for before I run the test, I'll have to start the application. So let me start the Docker first. And let me quickly go to the terminal and run the command docker compose. So if you want to get this command for the docker compose, how to run it, you can also check this file directly. I have provided the command in the file also. Have to run this file. So since my test will trigger both of the suite XMLs for RESTful Booker as well as RESTful e-commerce, I have to start both of these. So this one is started. See, this -d refers to detached mode. That means we won't be seeing any logs here, but the container will be started in the background. Similarly, I will start the RESTful Booker as well. -d. So both of these services are started. Let's go to the Docker and check the containers. So we can see this Docker files is a folder here that I have in my root project, and it is running two different Docker containers, one for the RESTful e-commerce and the other one for the RESTful Booker. Let me run the test, and I'll run it using mvn clean install, which will build the project, download the latest dependencies, and then run the test. We can see the test has executed successfully, and we see the build success message here. Now it's time to generate the Allure report. So let me run the command mvn allure serve. It will by default open the report in the default browser. So you can see it has generated the Allure results folder also and generated the report. Before we go on to check the report, let me show you some folders that are important to know before we check the report. So we see the Allure results folder getting generated here. Allure-results folder, that the results folder is generated as per the Allure properties file, the path that we specified, target slash Allure results. So the Allure results folder is generated inside this. And there is also one folder called .allure, which is generated as soon as we run the command mvn space allure serve. And the report is generated in the default browser. We can see the report. It was run just now. The execution time also, 8 test cases were run. The first one, 7 test cases as a part of RESTful Booker test suite, then RESTful e-commerce test suite. And you can see the report was generated using Maven since we use the command mvn allure serve. Let's check out the test that we updated. So add order test. This is the class name. This is the method name. And this is the test details. Severity is normal, duration 196 milliseconds, and the test body and the post request. So this is the request that is attached. Like I mentioned earlier, new Allure results, new Allure rest assured method did the trick here to attach the request. And you can see the whole full request is attached here. Steps are also updated here. We can see the first step, create order payload, and then the second step, send post order request and verify the response. Similarly, we can also see the response coming up correctly here. Status code 201, message is orders added successfully, and the order details with the headers and other details as well. And you can see the details coming up correctly in the report. Since this is the first report generated today, there is no trend here. But as soon as we generate the reports one by one, or maybe multiple times, you will see the trend of the test execution. You can also see the graphs also getting generated here, timeline, behaviors, packages. There were 2 suites here. The second one was RESTful Booker, create booking, delete booking, get booking, token. And since nothing was updated for this test as a part of the steps or attachments, you don't see anything coming up here. But if I also fix that thing, that will also happen to appear in the report henceforth. But since I have not updated any step or other minor details for the generation of the Allure report, it just fetched all the data based on the @test annotation. So in this RESTful Booker test class for the different methods. So this is how like the Allure report was generated in the local. Let's move to the second part and learn how to generate Allure report with GitHub Actions. The successful generation of the Allure report gives us confidence that the internal report configuration is properly set up. And now we don't have to update anything in the local with regards to the test or pom.xml dependencies, plugins, or Allure properties, anything there. Those are already set and are working as expected. The same setting should work in the GitHub Actions as well. But we need to make sure we change the configurations and update the required settings in the remote repository that is hosted on the GitHub. Let's move on to the GitHub on the browser and then do the necessary changes there. So we have this, like I said, I have uh, this code available on this API-testing-rest assured repository on GitHub. You can check it out anytime. There are 2 steps that we need to take to make the Allure report working with GitHub Actions. The first one is we need to create a branch, and that the new branch can be created using this branches link here. You can see there are 2 branches here since I have already added the branch previously. we need to add a branch. You click on this new branch button and add a branch called gh-pages. The source will be from the main branch only. And then click on this create new branch. Since I have already created this branch earlier, I will not create this, as it will shout that it is a duplicate branch. So the branch name should be exactly gh-pages, right? This is the first step. Then move on to the settings. In the settings, there is a code and automation section. Inside that, go to the pages. Here, you need to click on this deploy from a branch and select this option deploy from branch. Build and deployment. The source will be deploy from a branch, and then select the branch as gh-pages. This is the only setting that you need to do, and then just wait for GitHub to take the necessary action. Just refresh this page for after 20-30 seconds, and you should be able to see that your site is live on so and so link, whatever repository is, and then slash the repository name. This will be your profile name and then your repository name. So GitHub automatically creates this and generates this link for you. You can just copy this link and save it in your notes, or maybe you can come later also to copy this link. There is no problem here because this will already be displayed every time you come to the settings and pages section here. The repository related settings are already done. Let's go back to the project, and inside these workflows, there's a maven.yaml file that we need to create. The details of the workflow that needs to be updated in this particular file are as follows. So the first part is name. You can give any meaningful name here. On this section refers to these two part, like on refers to two different variations here, on push or on pull request, and on pull request ideally. So the whenever someone pushes a code to the following branches, the branch name is master and issue hyphen star. I have an habit of creating a new ticket and then naming that branch as issue hyphen 1, 2, 3, 4. So whatever number I have after this hyphen, it can be any number. So that is the reason I have put the wildcard of star here. The any name or any number I put it there after issue, it will catch that name and run the actions on the branches as soon as I push the code to the repository. Similarly, whenever I raise a pull request to the master branch or from issue hyphen star, so that same is the same, issue hyphen 1, 2, 3, 4, anything it may be. Whenever I raise a pull request from that branch to the master branch, or something goes into the master branch from any branch, it will run the actions workflow. Since we want to generate the Allure report, this permission provides access right to the repository, which is required for generating the Allure report. So we need that target slash Allure results folder and that .allure folder to get generated. If we do not supply the right permission here, chances are the actions will fail, stating that you do not have permission to write on that repository or the project. The next section describes the jobs that are run as a part of this workflow. The first one is the build job, and it starts with the name build and test. It runs on the Ubuntu machine on the latest version. These are the different steps it undertakes. The JDK setup. The first step, it sets up JDK 21, which will be used for building the project with Maven and then running the test. So you can see the setup is quite simple and easy to understand. It will use the distribution Temurin, use the Java version 21, cache the Maven, and then install the JDK setup for us. This is the action name it uses to set up the Java. The next step is, since we are running the test using Docker Compose on demo applications, it's not hosted anywhere. So we need to start these applications before we run the test on it. So we will start RESTful Booker and e-commerce services. these are the commands that we need to run, that we ran in the local also. Docker compose -f. This GitHub workspace refers to the workspace that is created by Docker as soon as we check out the repository, because actions starts a fresh machine and we need to check out the repository first and all its content, and this content maybe have a different path. So that is GitHub workspace that by default gets created, and inside that the project directory remains the same, Docker files, and inside these Docker files we have Docker compose RESTful booker and Docker compose e-commerce. So both of these application command will run and it will start the applications. And then running the test. The tests are executed using the mvn clean install command, which downloads all required dependencies, builds the project, and then runs the test. Once the execution of the test is complete, then we will stop the applications that are running. As a best practice, the applications started using Docker Compose are stopped once all tests are executed, as they are no longer required in the workflow. Once the applications are stopped, a report is generated. And this particular report is not a step for Allure report generation. However, summarized test execution is generated in the continuous integration workflow, that is the actions workflow. It actually enables us to confirm that the test at least ran or failed in case the Allure report is not generated. So in case in the later stage, if the Allure report is not generated due to any XYZ error, this step will ensure that the test, at least the test were run, passed, failed, whatever the case may be. I have added this as an optional step just to confirm that the test ran and the results were generated, whatever the results may be, that gets printed using this test report, just to ensure that till here the workflow is working fine. If this step also fails, that means there is a configuration issue related to starting the application or running the test, or there is an issue inside the test itself. But like I said, it's an optional step, and if you want, you can remove it as well. The next step is to get the Allure history. This step, this one I'm talking about, these steps checks out the gh-pages branch of the repository, so the previous Allure report history is available during the workflow run. It runs even if the earlier steps fail. It clones the gh-pages branch into a folder named gh-pages instead of the root directory. You can see that there is a if always. That means even if there is a previous step failure, this will run. But we need to make sure you have the gh-pages branch available in the repository before we run the workflow. That is an important step that needs to be taken care of. Then comes the major action for Allure report generation. These steps generates the Allure HTML report using simple -elf Allure -report -action @master. This is the action that I'm using to generate the Allure report. It also has the same if always. That means even if the previous steps fail, this will run. It provides the path for the Allure results. Like I said, in the Allure.properties file, we specify the path for the results directory. And it keeps the report for the previous 20 builds. So this part, keep reports, it ensures that the history is kept for the 20 previous builds. You can change the number you want. I have kept it 20. You can also increase the history to 50 or maybe 30. But ideally, it's fine if you keep it till 10 or 20 maximum, because beyond that, nobody will go out and check what happened at the last 50 builds. What we need to know is whatever failure or pass status we have for the last 10 or 15 builds. That is more than enough. The last action is deploying the report to the GitHub pages. And this step publishes the report to the GitHub pages using this p-series/actions-gh-pages action. The workflow runs this step, and then using this Allure-history publishing directory and gh-pages publishing branch, it publishes the Allure report to the GitHub pages, making it accessible via public URL. So once the report is generated, anyone from anywhere can generate this report and verify the test results. Now, how do I run this workflow? This workflow should run as soon as a commit is pushed to the branch name, starting with issue hyphen and whatever the data we have after that, or when a pull request is raised from a branch to the main branch or the master branch. Like I said, we have two different ways to make this workflow run, on push or on pull request. And the workflow details can be easily checked on the actions tab of the repository. I've already run this workflow. I'll show you the details. So there are two workflows here: Java CI with Maven and pages build deployment. So if I just check the first workflow, you can see there is a job build and test. If you just compare it with here, just cross verify it. This is the name, build and test. And inside this build and test, there are multiple steps. It set up your job, then simple elf Allure report. So you can see the history part, getting the history. It first fetches for the history. If always actually helps, because if in case the Allure result is running for the first time, so you won't have any history and this step will fail. So we need to have this if always available here. And then it will run the actions for checking out the repository from the GitHub to this container, and then set up Java 21, start the application, build and run the test report. This is the optional test report that I just talked about. And then get the Allure history, Allure report, action generation, and then the deploy report to the GitHub pages. And finally, workflow part is been run like the post setup and the cleanup job. If you just check the summary here, the report that I just mentioned, this test report, it gives out the report in this fashion. It executed the test in 5 seconds, and these are the test suites that were run and the test methods as well. Let's check out the second workflow, pages build deployment. This workflow provides a step-by-step view of the pages built and deployed with a link to the latest generated Allure report. And that is available in this deploy step. This URL, we can copy it and paste it in the about section of the repository for ready reference. So if you want, you can just copy this link from here and go to this about section and paste it here. Anytime you want to view the Allure report for a ready reference, you can just click on this link here and you will be able to see the report getting generated on the fly. Let me go back to the actions once again. And you can see here, this build ran two different jobs, build status and then the deploy one. If you want, you can just check out the details log as well. If anything fails here, it can be very easily checked for the logs. But this is all run by GitHub Actions itself. We just gave this particular step, deploy report to GitHub pages, and this Git actions -gh pages action actually calls all of these steps. So the report is successfully generated using GitHub Actions that can be verified using these executors. When we ran the Allure report locally using Maven, we saw the executors was Maven, but here we can see the executor as GitHub Actions. And there are the same suites, two different suites, RESTful Booker and RESTful e-commerce test suite. Let's quickly check out the RESTful e-commerce test suite. And we see there is one method, test add order ran successfully. The test body has two steps, create order payload and then send post order request and verify the request. We can also see the request and the responses also coming up correctly here. That means the report was successfully created using the GitHub Actions. If you want to check the older history of the report, Like for example, if you want to view the fourth, the current report is 5, the index is 5, or maybe the index version of the report is 5. So currently the version is 5. If you want to view a older report like 4, you can also view that. You can see the date and time getting changed here: 1912, 2025, 2036. If you check, compare it with the fifth version, you will see the report coming out at 204453. That is, this time was the fifth version of this report generated, and the fourth version was generated at 2036. All the details should remain the same because there were no failures. But just for a quick reference, I'm just showing you the steps as well. What if I want to check out for the second version? You can see there was some error here as I was trying to generate the report using GitHub Actions. In the third version, you can see it was generated on 1955, even earlier. So this is how the versions are also maintained, which is quite helpful for keeping the history of the test execution, for making informed decisions around the test execution details. GitHub Actions allows tests to be executed and reports to be generated on the fly with a one-time configuration and setup. It also enables maintaining report history, which can be referenced in the future. Test automation, when combined with detailed text execution, helps teams and stakeholders make timely and informed decisions. Thank you for watching this video. If you have not subscribed to my channel, do it right now. Do like and share this video with your friends.